guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock, episode 28. I'm Sophie, and my mom is back.
I'm back.
Part 2.
Aren't you excited?
Yes, I'm excited. So my mom was in episode 4. We talked about confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to talk about depression again. I talked about it in episode 3, anxiety and depression, because it's something I struggle with. But at the time of recording that, I had convinced myself that I had healed. Just like I chose to be better from that. But then as it kept coming up, I learned more and more things. So all the things that I said in that episode, I still agree with. So you can go back and listen to that. But I just have a little bit of a different perspective, and I've seen a little bit of more of what God has done through it. Even just 3 or 4 months later. So I had my mom come, and I wanted her to talk as well and just kind of like add into conversation because she has witnessed a lot of it. And so, yeah, I was going to start out with a Bible verse, and it'll kind of later on, these were a few verses that I kind of fought back with almost. They're not ones I had memorized necessarily, but they were truths that I had remembered during harder moments. And so this first one is Isaiah 41:10. It says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." So in the harder days and the harder moments when you're feeling overtaken by sadness or whatever it is, fear not, because God is with you. And he'll strengthen you and he'll help you. And so don't give up on him in the hard moments. Don't let those harder feelings overtake you. Do not be dismayed, and let God strengthen you. Don't try to do it on your own. For a while, I was trying to fight the things I was struggling with on my own, and I would hide it, or I would just not say anything, and I was trying to do it. But then when I was able to give it to God, he's been able to use it more. And I would say over the past few months, when I truly chose to give those harder things to God, I've had cool conversations with other people struggling with it, and been able to try to be there for other people, and accepting help for people to come help me in that as well. So my depression kind of started with intrusive thoughts, which I didn't know what that was. But I said, one time when I was running to a girl, I was like, "Isn't this so weird?" And I told her what happened, and then she was like, "So that's called intrusive thoughts." And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And I went home and told my mom, and I told my counselor, and then we realized oh, that's not a normal thing to be oh, there's a train. I can pull in front of that train kind of thing.
Right.
So, kind of started working through that, realized oh, what is that? And then, eventually there was moments, it's kind of baseline sadness often, whether that's hard to get out of bed, whether that's no motivation to do anything. But
yeah, I think that as a parent, and probably as your friends, it is the characteristics of being in a depressive state is what those folks see. So your parents see, or your friends might see that you say no to going to events, or you don't get out of the bed. You're always sick, or always, there's those things. And then oftentimes the people on the outside, like parents, and try to fix that. Okay, we're going to set the alarm earlier. I'm going to get up and help you do this, and those sorts of things. And that's not the root of the issue. Though those can be helpful and they should be done. Instead, what you're saying is getting in deeper and really dealing with, okay, I am depressed. Now let's deal with what that means to be in this depressive state. And once you have had a bout with depression, it's like your brain creates a map to that. So then when something happens, your brain will quickly follow that same road it took last time to depression again. And that's why we often have these up and down of depression,
Mm-hmm.
where sometimes we're feeling good and you think like you did that you were healed,
Yeah.
but then in actuality it comes around again. And so
Yeah.
you might could think of it as you got through, or you were healed, from that time of it, but
Yeah.
it is something that will come back. It
Yeah.
just is the way it is. So I think your counselor and doctors and others that we've talked to, it's talking about creating that new path, so that as you start to go down that depressive path or that road,
Yeah.
that instead can we, when your friends, your family start to see, ooh, there's those characteristics of
Yeah.
that I know something's not up.
Yeah.
That, okay, then how is it that we can get on this other path? And
Right.
what is this other path? And sometimes it is those real specific things like your counselor says to say, is that you're using those statements that are more
Yeah.
self-affirming, that there's things. But as Christians, we believe that we must go to the Word, that we've
Yeah.
got to get to what is it that God says. And I
Yeah.
think that we know for sure that through our faith that His promises are true,
Yeah.
and that is what we have to count on.
Right.
And number one, Adam and Eve
Yeah.
had that little sin situation they started for us, and they so with that sin, we were promised. One of the promises that we get is that there are going to be some hard things.
Yeah.
You're going to work hard, ladies. It's going to hurt when that to even to procreate this wonderful thing is
Yeah.
going to hurt, and all of this sin it's there in our world now.
Yeah.
Being depressed is not a sin. I think that the fact that sickness and depression and those things exist at all, that is because of sin. We live in a fallen world, and I think that the thing that we need to remember when we want to get back on that path is to remember that Christ died for us, and what He's done for us is salvation. And so this verse that helps us to remember when we think about that sickness is 1 Peter 2:24, who His own self bare our sins in His own body on the tree, that we, being dead to sins, should live unto righteousness, by whose stripes we are healed. Not ye were healed, you were healed, I was healed by His stripes. So if we are claiming our salvation every day, you're saved. Once you decided, I'm going to put my faith in Jesus, you were saved that one time.
Yeah.
But we have to put our faith in our salvation every day.
Yeah.
And so we were dead to sins. We were already dead. We were dead.
Right.
That's worse than depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And He died for us
Yeah.
on that tree and rose again so that we could be healed. And true healing will come for the believer when we meet Him in heaven.
Yes.
And that is, but we also have to look to that true healing to live in our hard daily lives when we are depressed, when things feel bad. You know what? I was worth dying for. So my life here on earth is worth living because I have got to, share this love of Christ with everybody else.
Yeah.
My life should bring Him glory. Sometimes it's in our weakness that He is seen. His glory is seen. His strength is seen, and it's part of His plan.
Right.
I know we like to. Depression seems to have this connotation that's a little more like, oh, maybe you just made it up. But everybody can see, when you break your arm, and I'm suffering because I broke an arm, everybody can see it and understand that, oh, that's not really you're a bad person because you broke your arm, or you have trouble, or you're mentally ill, or whatever. It's just a little different. But we've got to remember that everything in this life is can be pointed to Jesus. So whatever happens to us, it needs to become point to Him. So we've got to, I think you need to think of it as a sickness. It's fine. It's a sickness.
Right.
And we're not going to be over and done with it ever. We're going to have to work through it and decide, I'm going to claim the truth. So I'm going to remember my salvation. And I think a good thing to do before you get in your kind of that depressive sort of slump is, are we remembering that every single day?
Yeah.
That must be your habit, is I'm filling myself with this word. I'm filling myself with this word. So we don't miss out on that at all.
So eventually, like what you were saying about the map, this
The
roadmap,
Yeah.
I eventually had to get on medication to help calm down enough to try to rewire that map. And so that was something I didn't say last time about my medicine, but I am on medicine, and learning that is something that God has, He's made people to be doctors, and He's made these super cool things to let you get help. And obviously medicine's not for everybody, and it's not going to be a forever thing for me, but I needed it for a time being, for seasons of life, to help get past certain things so I could heal a little bit and then remind myself of the truth of God so I can stand firm. But then when I was always at a high, like gonna fall into a valley quickly, it was hard to learn those things and get help in that season because I wasn't stable at all. And then also what you were saying about, you might see it as like you can't get out of bed or something like that. It was very helpful for people to force me to do things. It was actually really only you and my best friend, and they would make me do things. No, we know Sophie loves to do this, so she's going to babysit for that family because she loves that family. Or she's going to go get ice cream with her friends because she loves her friends and ice cream. And just being like encouraged and pushed to do those things didn't heal me from depression, but it helped me have good moments in life that I was reminded of God's goodness still here on earth. And so, because often it was hard to see the good things God was doing when I was always so low.
And you're feeling, when you have those intrusive thoughts and you're saying those things over and over again, is why should I bother? Nothing's good. Nothing is really, for you to get some evidence that it is good.
Right.
But again, thank you for acknowledging that those things do not heal us from, you still must deal with your depression, that deeper underlying issue. And for you, it is a combination of medications and the word. For people, it can be, natural homeopathic methods. It can be a combination of things. You've been on a couple of medications. I think you should say that we've changed out things that we quickly saw that some wouldn't work. We won't tell the hilarious stories about that because you'll be embarrassed.
It's so funny.
But that will happen. And then when you know how to control it. So that I had something called postpartum depression after you were born. And it's horrible. So we so I did do a type of medication for a short time to get over that. And then, but then as my own life from 17 years ago, things have happened in our lives that, I realized, suddenly I'm depressed. And it's sometimes you get in, when you're in the cycle, you don't realize how depressed you are until you get better. And you're like, oh dear, I was low. But then, so now I've learned that I have a more of an incidental medication, so that if something's happened and I'm going to be in this kind of situation, I call my doctor and say, this has happened. She knows, and we work together, and I do that for that, and quickly get to I'm doing that, and I stay in the Word. I'm in the Word every morning. I am, I'm in my closet. And remembering, living out my salvation, working out my salvation, that I'm remembering that I was good enough to die for. Right. And that's pretty amazing.
And like being grounded in those truths is what's going to get you through. So that's why it's important to stay in the Word.
Right.
And like, I can remember a few instances where it was hard to think I could live through the next day. And the things that were going on in the back of my head before I went and wouldn't tell my mom if I was alone in my room and it started happening. Before I went down and, was clearly upset about something, I had these, it was like my mind was battling, which was a weird thing to see, but it was like, Satan in my head and sin and all these things being like, you're worthless, why would you live, you're a burden, everyone's life is so much harder that you're in it now, and, this depression is like terrible for everybody around me because it's my fault. And then the truths of God that were combating it and being like, no, she's mine. She's loved and she's needed, but also I died for her, and this is not gonna be the end of her story. And so those were the truths that were fighting back at it, and the reasons I was able to keep going.
Right.
Another verse that you can that was comforting to me is Deuteronomy 31:8. It says, "It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed." And so this was when Joshua's leading the Israelites into their first battle. And Joshua's on the mountain with Moses when God gave him that law, and that's also when God commanded them to make disciples of all nations starting now. But like, how fearful was that? You were leading a battle. You were leading a group into army. Like, you were leading an army into battle. And they were reminding you, the Lord goes before you, and he is with you, and he will not leave you. And so just having this truth, like, God's not leaving me. He's not going to leave me in my bathroom floor alone. He's going to stay there with me until I get up and go somewhere else, and he's going to follow me there too. So that's comforting to know, but also just knowing that truth that he's already defeated death. God already defeated death on the cross. And so there's no need for us to fear that or have our struggles or our sadness overtake us in that way, because God already defeated that. He has victory over death. He has victory over Satan. And so we don't need to let those things take control of us. And when they do, we have to remind ourselves of the promises of God.
And I think that you, like you said, doesn't make you a bad Christian if at times you are overtaken by that, and that you have a struggle to get out of that, and remembering your promises. So like you, I had thinking about that, not to fear. Psalm 31:24 says, "Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord." That he will strengthen us. He will provide that. But this verse that was the one I intended to bring to you today was Psalm 40:11. It's, "Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted within me? I hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my God." I mean, he says right there, he is the health of your countenance. That's right. Those feelings, those emotions, that the highs and the lows. And to be reminded, like that. So this is Psalm, so that's likely the writer is David of that, and that somebody as beloved to God as David was also cast down. He was worried and depressed, and like you just mentioned before he leads them into battle there, this is real feelings. This is real, and it's not made up. And that's what I feel like that people might have the idea that depression is an excuse or something like that. But it is real, and men of God have dealt with it. Women of God have dealt with it, and but God has this awesome way to help lead us out of those. So. And what that is focusing on, like I said, that salvation. Listen to this from Proverbs 12:25. And this is from my New King James Version, so yours might say it a little differently, but this says, "Anxiety in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word makes it glad." So what's our good word? So you and I try to, let's do this, just a little practice. We didn't practice this. Let's see this. So what are our truths? What do we know for sure that God says about us as believers? What do we know about God? Just that off the top of your head, you are fearfully and wonderfully made.
He died on the cross for your sins because he loves you so much.
That's right. Yeah. God is good all the time. He is faithful to complete the good work that he started in you. Wow. How brave would you be if you thought, I'd rather not live in this world anymore. But then you thought, the king who died for me is, wow, he's going to complete this good work in me. Yeah. And it's going to be through me walking this hard way. Okay, what else?
Do not worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything.
That's right. Bring it on in prayer, Because guess what? He
hears your prayers.
He hears them.
And he cares.
He cares. Yeah.
And that verse, and anxiety heart.
Yeah. Anxiety heart. Okay.
In the heart.
Okay, go ahead.
I was
Where,
rereading
you want to
that
read
verse.
this? Okay. You want to see it better?
No. Anxiety in the heart of a man causes depression. That really is how mine is. Anxiety in my heart brings up that depression, but then it literally is, but the good word makes it glad. And so,
And this is the good word.
this is, the Bible's a good word, and
It's-
Jesus really does heal that. In Philippians 4:8, it says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, what is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. And so I think all of those things are good reminders when you feel like there's no hope, when you feel like there's no tomorrow, when you think all of those things.
That's right.
Remind yourself what's true and what is honorable, what is just, what is pure, what is lovely, and all those things that points back to God, and
Yeah.
He's the maker of that.
He is. And another truth is that shortest verse in the Bible. Do you remember that one?
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in good company.
Yeah.
That he was sad. And do you remember why he was sad?
Because his friend died.
He lost his friend. He lost his friend, and he wept. Fully man and fully God, and he wept.
Yeah.
And so that was part of. So if you are fearfully and wonderfully made, you are His creation. You're created in the image of God.
Right.
And he wept. He leaned into his emotion.
Yeah.
But then he turned to God, and the truth's there.
Yes.
And because he was fully God, and as God, he healed Lazarus. So that's a whole other
And
thing.
that helps in the sense of like knowing that he wept, knowing that Jesus walked this earth. He had feelings. He lost friends. He, saw broken people. He saw broken relationships. He saw like all these hard things, and he still wept. But he also rejoiced and didn't sin in that. And so that like gives hope and less lonely. Of you can face tomorrow because Jesus lives and because he conquered death.
That's right.
And he felt those things as well.
That's right.
Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I just hope that you'll keep talking about it, and your friends and listeners will continue to be on the lookout for their teenage friends that might be struggling.
Yeah.
We don't want to leave anybody out there to struggle alone, like without having a person, but also without knowing the one true God.
Right. Because what is the hope?
That's right. That's right. Here's where our hope lies. And so, and then if there's anybody, that I know that you'll talk to everybody, but if somebody wants to talk to me about it, they totally can. Moms, or I can act like your mom if you want.
No one can talk to Stacy.
Yes.
And my last point is that I feel more on the other side of those suicidal thoughts, of those things that you can't do tomorrow, because I have gone so excited to see what the Lord is going to do in my life, and I don't want to cut that short. I don't want, if I have to die tomorrow and that's what's going to bring more people to Jesus, then okay, I'm ready. But if it's going to be, when I'm 101 and that's how more people are going to be brought to Jesus, it's just like learning that it's truly what I want, what Jesus wants for me, and then having to remind myself of this truth. So
that's excellent. And even applying that to other people is, don't you want to see what God's going to do in Casey's life and in Jeremy's life? That's that's a good point to kind of look inward but also outward.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening or watching, and I'll see you next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.